So here's a project that I did last year with research partners, and the client here was NextGen, which is actually California-based, but we were doing national work on how to find a narrative that weaves together issues of the economy, education, and the environment. So the first thing I want to show you is, again, another of these wording differences between climate change and damage to the climate. Climate change in blue, damage to the climate in yellow. This is how many people rated this as strongly agree in the darker color and just overall agree. So what we can see is that while the base obviously agrees either way, that's how they became the base, right? It's a tautology. They're in the base because of their answers to questions like this. The intensity number, which has a correlation with likelihood of repetition, is on the familiarity bias, right? So this is a problem for us with the base. The base routinely, but no one more than the activists, routinely guesses wrong what the most persuasive language is. What the activists like best and what's persuasive, it's amazing. But what you can see is that with the persuadables, again, the lion's share of the sample, more than half the sample, they're much more in agreement with damage to the climate. Notice that climate change is a frozen phrase. It's also become personified, and it is now the agent of all these terrible, horrible things. And in point of fact, we can't actually pass laws on climate change. We can pass laws on carbon emissions, we can pass laws on agricultural waste, we can pass laws on solar panels, right? We cannot pass laws on climate change. And so what is happening here is that climate change has become the agent. Damage to the climate implies human agency, even though it doesn't specifically state it. It's also not a frozen phrase. What climate change means to persuadables is that thing that you people are always yelling and screaming about. This is a very complicated point that's just really interesting. I don't know how actionable it is, but it's interesting. So when we were doing this research, I had this hypothesis that one of the issues that we were confronting was that we were so detached from sort of the personness of ourselves, of our lived reality as Homo sapiens, as mammals, as animals. And that was a big part of why it's difficult to make arguments about the environment. It's difficult to make arguments about music in schools, right? Because if we're just robots, productive worker robots, then why do we need music, and why do we need a climate, and why do we need an environment, and why do we need paid family leave, and to take care of our elderly parents and so on. So what you're seeing here is a split sample between forced choice between my least favorite sentence ever, what is best for our economy should guide our policy choices, so purposely using my least favorite sentence, versus for half the sample, they get to pick either that or they get to pick what's best for people, and the other half of the sample gets to pick either what's best for the economy or what's best for humans. Now, to my happy surprise, we actually beat the economy in both formulations. I thought we were so far gone in our we should do what's best for the economy. We should make sure the economy's okay. Yes, I realize time. But we beat it in both cases. But look, we beat it more soundly with humans. And the reason for that is because if you think of the frame around people, right, we would say the people are voting in November, or the people are going shopping, or the people have good jobs, so they don't have jobs. We wouldn't say the humans are voting in November. We wouldn't say the humans are going shopping tomorrow. We use people to refer to Homo sapiens in a socio-political context. I'm sorry, we use people. We use humans to talk about Homo sapiens in a mammalian biological context, right? The human reproductive system, the human digestive system. Humans do this, bonobos do that. And so when we talk about humans, we're better able to see sort of what we need as being sort of not necessarily completely analogous to the economy. And of course the opposition doesn't buy this, but they're terrible people. So here's an example of a message that dials very strongly. And again, remember, the name of the game is economy, environment, education. This purple line, union households, that's what that stands for.
America can work for all. not just the wealthy few, if we act together to change the rules. We need to rewrite the rules by coming together to do the right thing, not remain hostage to lobbying and greed. We need to place clean air and water for all ahead of corporate profits for a few. Make sure every public school has what it needs instead of handing off education to private corporations with no accountability. And put fair pay for working people above CEO bonuses for laying off employees. We cannot let a powerful few bend the rules for their own gains while hurting the rest of us.
Yeah, see, they're terrible people. They don't want clean air and water. Like, they're terrible people. All right. Part of the mission of this particular research project was to experiment with making race explicit. I'm spending a lot more time on that now. That's basically most of what I focus on is how do we talk about race and experiments with that, but that's ongoing. So here is an early iteration of that. This is, we tried 2 versions of this message. This is the one where we make explicit mention of race.
America is a nation of strivers. People working hard to make ends meet and create a better future. All work has value, but when people are expected to work more for less, corporations make profits by damaging our climate, and teachers are expected to solve the challenges of child poverty, America isn't working for all, especially African American and Latino communities. We cannot allow corporations to pay anyone less than a living wage, and we cannot shortchange our own children by leaving schools without the resources to truly educate them. We must join together for fair wages, great schools, and the healthy environment we deserve. We are a can-do nation, and we not only can do this, we must.